First off, I want to thank Linda for the opportunity to come on here and connect with you guys. I know from talking with her, you guys are her world. You guys are her family. You know, the LeadHERship community is what she's about. And Maddie and I don't take the opportunity and the responsibility of connecting with you guys for the next hour for granted. We take this very seriously, and it's our goal to be able to provide you with as much information as we possibly can in order to help you guys improve your businesses and reach your goals. And Maddie and I really believe that time is the most valuable asset that we have, right? And you're never going to get it back. And so our goal is to give you a great ROI on this time. We want after this hour to you to look back and be like, you know what? That was the best hour I spent this week, this month, and who knows, maybe this year if we can really hit it out of the park. And so we're going to do our best to be able to go and do that for you guys. But before I dive into everything that I go out there and do, I first want to let my beautiful wife here, Maddie, introduce herself, tell her a little bit about who she is. Because I think whenever we get on these calls, right, everyone's telling you what to do and how to do it. But the question is, who do you listen to? How do you know what advice to go out there and take? And Maddie is just one of the best in the world when it comes to branding, specifically helping women in particular, actually, is her expertise find brand clarity and understand that. She's going to expand on that a little bit later in this call. But no further ado, Maddie, go ahead and take it away and share with a little bit of what you do and what you're about.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. So grateful to be here with all of you. And thank you for taking time out of your evening to be here. Like Luke mentioned, my name is Maddie, co-founder of Ace Branding, and actually also the Chief Branding Officer with a specialty in brand identity and strategy. Like Luke also mentioned, I primarily work with women. That is a huge passion of mine, assisting them in getting the credibility, social proof, and visibility that they more than deserve. Outside of Ace, I am a full-time mama to our sweet daughter, Atara, and wife to my incredibly talented husband, who has taught me pretty much everything I know. Another passion of mine is intentional motherhood. So all things around doing motherhood on purpose, which is what I've actually, since becoming a mother, pivoted to and built my brand around over the last few years. So now I'm going to pass it back to Luke as he tells you a little bit about himself.
Yeah, and I don't think I have to really talk much. Thankfully, Linda did more than I can do when it comes to explaining my background. And so, cool thing for me is that means I get to dive right into the content, which is really why you guys are here, is to be able to go and learn this content. And so, the intention of today's call is to teach you guys how to attract media attention and drive revenue. And ultimately, the goal is to be able to help you guys make your dreams become a reality. As an entrepreneur and everyone on this call, I think we all know that it can be difficult. It's like we're kind of on this road alone sometimes, and it feels like, it's we don't have a lot of help. Sometimes our parents, and our friends and our children sometimes don't understand our passions and why we're doing what we're doing. And it's nice to be able to have community, people who understand you, people who support you, people who can kind of help you along the way. And that's why I think this LeadHERship community is so special. I've learned in my life that there's two ways to be able to go out there and learn. People sometimes ask me, it's like, well, how did you find success at a young age? And it wasn't because I was all that smart. It's not because I was born into this amazing family that, gave me all the everything I needed, even though my family is freaking amazing. I will say that. It's really because I was blessed to be able to find mentors at a young age. When I was 19 years old, I met someone who was 25 years old, and at the time he was making $40,000 a month online, and he had a mentor who was 60 years old who had done tens and tens of millions of dollars. And he basically taught me how to be able to go and build a brand online. And so when I first got into business, as you heard from Linda, I had no money, right? I was at Michigan State University. I was a dead broke college student, but what I knew is that I didn't want to take the traditional route, right? The whole adage of going to high school, getting your grades, go to college, get good grades, make a resume, apply for a job, work 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life, retire on 40% of your income, get a nice gold watch, picket fence, and boom, that's life. That just didn't sit with me. Like I wanted more. I really had these big dreams, big goals, big aspirations, and I knew the traditional route wasn't going to go and work. And so when I met someone who was around my age, 25, I was 19, and he had those results, I just wanted to learn. I think whatever's been done in life can be duplicated. And so what he taught me at that day is he taught me a principle. And this is a principle that I tell everybody is that in life, we can learn from one of two ways, right? You can learn number one through mentors or number two through mistakes. And when you learn through mistakes, it's a lot of trial and error. It's very painful and it can take a long time to go and figure things out. But when you learn through mentors, you get to learn through their mistakes. And so therefore, it can help you avoid mistakes that they made so that you can find success much faster. Think of it kind of like if you're trying to go and climb a hill, right? Or a giant mountain, right? There's some guy who's climbed this mountain 100 times. You've never climbed it before. But if you can climb up that mountain with him, they'll tell you, hey, you should put it here. You should, put your foot here. Don't take that path, take this path. And they'll guide you to the top of this mountain because they've done it 100 times. And so that's the same thing when it comes to business. That's the same thing when it comes to success. And so that's what I did. I was smart enough to know how dumb I was at 19 years old. Okay. That's really what it was. I just was like, I don't know anything. You obviously know a lot more based on your results. So tell me what to do and I will freaking do it. And that's what I did. And the very first thing that he focused on, and this was back in 2012, 2013 at that time, is he said, hey, Luke, listen, the world is shifting. Okay. If you look at the world, there are these transitions that happen. Like 100 years ago, 90% of the people were farmers, right? We're in the agrarian age, and that's just how it went. Then we shift into this industrial revolution where now that 40-40-40 plan that I was talking about kind of like became the norm and the thing to go out there and do. But he explained to me that, hey, Luke, we're making another shift right now. We are moving from this industrial age into the digital age. In the digital age, this is an age where the largest media company on the planet doesn't create any of their own content, right? Facebook, right? This is an age where the largest real estate company on the planet doesn't own any real estate, right? That would be, Airbnb. This is an interesting age where we are moving into technology. And as we shift into this digital age in the world of marketing, attention has also gone up there and shifted. So you think about it, when people woke up back in the day, they would wake up and they would read the newspaper, then they drive to work, listen to the radio, come home, watch TV, and that's kind of how the whole game worked. But now what happens is everybody's walking around and staring at their phones all the time. And so as attention has shifted from those other verticals to now, the digital realm, the idea of building a reputation, building a brand, being able to own your digital real estate online has become extremely, extremely valuable. And so he told me, he said, Luke, if you want to be able to become successful, it doesn't matter if you want to build an online business or if you have a traditional business. He said, this is where the world is going. And he's like, if you can build the brand, you can build your personal brand, and then you can build your business's brand online, and you can own that digital real estate. It will give you a massive competitive advantage in comparison to the competition in the future. He told me, he said, listen, Luke, think of your brand like a digital asset. So if you go and you buy a house today, you're probably not going to be able to sell it for, twice the amount of money tomorrow. Right? It's going to take time for that to appreciate in value. And he said, that's the way that you have to think of your brand, is that if you can start to build your brand today, if you can start to get, some attention around your brand, build credibility, and I'll talk about exactly how to be able to go and do that in this call. He's like, if you do that today, that value of that brand over time is going to continue to grow. And you'll be able to leverage that in anything that you do. And it doesn't matter what business you do. If you keep doing this business, at the time that business was an affiliate business, he's like, or if you start your own one day, if you can build your brand, then it will allow you to have a massive, massive competitive advantage. And that's really what I was able to go out there and do. That's how I took, a loan from my parents to teach me a lesson that these things don't work, and turned it, into what, Linda was saying a little bit earlier. And now I've been blessed to be able to teach those principles to over 1,500 other clients, over the last 6 years. And so that's why I'm so excited to get on this call, is because I know how much this information has impacted Maddie and I's life. I remember when I met Maddie, it was back in 2017, 2016, and she was working corporate at the time. And Maddie, you should share a little bit about that story, and then, we'll dive into the real content of what it is from there. But talk about how building a brand kind of changed what it is that you did in your career.
Yeah. So when Luke and I met, I didn't really have a brand. I mean, I had like maybe a couple thousand followers on Instagram. And I was working corporate at the time, so I really didn't have a necessary need for my brand at the time. I was doing corporate IT sales. And although I was really good at what I did, it wasn't what I was passionate about, right? It wasn't something that I love to do. And like Luke said, now we live in a completely different age where it has opened up this realm of possibility where you actually can now do what you love and also make money, right? And so for me, I remember this specific moment where I came home from work and I was really upset about something, and I went to Luke because he was also a mentor to me, and he just looked at me, and and I'm sure you guys have had somebody in your life who's done this, hopefully, but he was just like, okay, I empathize with that, but what are you going to do about it? And he was basically just like pushing me to say, hey, like, you are in control more than you even know, more than you even realize. So what are you going to do about it? And I was just like, you're right. Teach me your ways, like teach me entrepreneurship, teach me how to pivot from the corporate world to more of the entrepreneurial world. And so he just took me under his wing and taught me what he knew. And in over those previous months too, watching him do what he did and be on the sales calls and build his brand and build his agency's brand, I then started to kind of get an itch to do the same. And then when I started doing sales for the agency, it was a perfect excuse to do that. And in doing that, I have built a successful brand of around 100,000 people online. I have a lot of brand partnerships that I do with brands that I wholeheartedly align with and believe in. I help push sales for them. And also, it just ties in perfectly with my passions around intentional motherhood and really where I have pivoted my brand to. So, like, an example would be like me really putting in the research to what type of baby formula I wanted to use if I was going to need to use it, right? And then it's like, okay, sharing that research, but then also promoting that product that I believe in and that I use, and then making money in return. Therefore, doing what I love while also running the agency with Luke. So it's been a really fun ride. It's ever evolving and ever changing, but that's why we love to do what we do, because we love to continue to share those ways that the industry has changed and how we can grow and evolve with it instead of being beat by it.
Really, really, really well said, Maddie. Really well said. And I think she's just such a great example of what can happen if you really commit to this stuff. So, really appreciate that, Maddie. So let's dive into some of the actual content here, right? So we are a digital PR firm. That's what I'm in. I'm in the world of digital PR. And again, kind of a new world. Like, what even is digital PR? What's the difference between digital PR, real PR? How does it affect me? How is this going to help me grow my business? All of these things, right? So the first thing I want to share with you guys is a simple definition. Okay, I want to share with you a very simple definition of what digital PR is. And let me share my screen real quick for you guys here. And so this is how we define digital PR at our firm, Ace Branding. So we define digital PR as the conscious and intentional effort to create and influence the online reputation of an individual or business by positioning them as an authority in their industry, elevating their credibility, and differentiating themselves from the competition to ultimately achieve their goals, widen their circle of influence, and have a larger impact. And this is obviously a very robust definition of what we do, but this is really what it is. And the concept of this is very simple. It's the idea that first impressions in the digital age still do last a lifetime. However, in this age, oftentimes that first impression isn't from a handshake or a conversation, but rather from a social media or a Google search. And so if we can anticipate that and then position your brand in a way that when people look you up online, it conveys the same credibility, authority, and narrative as if they were to have an actual conversation with you offline, it gives you a massive, massive, massive advantage on the competition. And I'll give you just a simple example of what I've been able to go out there and do myself, right? So like if you go and you look at let's just say you go to Google and, you go and Google my name. And this happens all the time because in our agency, we do, cold outbound, and that's how we connect with people. And they're like, who is this guy that's reaching out to me? This Luke Hessler guy, right? When people do their research, there was actually a study in Adweek that was done, and it's found that 82% of consumers do online research before making a buying decision, right? But what does online research really mean? All right, this is what it really means for most people. It's like a quick Google. Okay. So they're going to look at here. And usually in a matter of seconds, they're going to see this and they're going to make a judgment of whether or not I am legit or not. Okay. And sometimes if people are really doing the online research, maybe they'll look at my social media accounts and, they'll see, some of the content that's in here and like they'll check that out, or maybe they'll read some of the articles or whatever that may go out there and be. But the idea is in a very, very short amount of time, based off of a very small amount of information, which is what they're seeing on Google and on social media, people are judging. And based on those judgments determines buying decisions that they make in real life. And I'll give you guys an example of like what this could go out there and look like. And this is important. So, think about the last time that you went out there and actually, this is a better example for Maddie to go out there and say, Maddie, you actually gave me this example the other day. Talk about what you shared with me earlier today.
Yeah, so yeah, I have a really great example for this. So, let's say you are traveling for a friend's wedding weekend, and for the ladies, you need to get your nails done, right? So you search nail salon near me. Well, then let's say 2 or 3 nail salons pop up on Google. One with 5 stars and 1,000 reviews, and the other with 5 stars, but only 100 reviews. Which one would you be more likely to choose and why? Probably the one with 1,000 reviews. But then it's like, okay, but why? And most of the time, that's because you're associating more reviews with better service. But what if they have more reviews, not because they have better service necessarily, but because they have been around longer? Or maybe they even bought the reviews, because you can also do that. Like Luke mentioned, it's all about perceived credibility. So depending on the industry you are personally in, more than likely there's been someone who has gone before you, a competitor of yours per se. They might have been around for the last 20 years and they look way better online, let's just say, but they still have old ways of doing things. And your ways are new and improved, much more advanced and with the times, yet your online reputation isn't in full alignment with your offline reputation. So in other words, what people are saying about your product or your service. And so bottom line is, if their perceived credibility is better than yours, people will choose them.
Especially if all else is equal. That's the deciding factor that is there. And
Yeah.
so it's such a good point. And it's really important because people don't think about this, because again, it's a newer thing. This online world is a newer thing. So when they're thinking about building a business, they don't necessarily put their energy there, but it's very real. And you can think the same example. Think of the same example if you're trying to get something to eat, or if you're buying something off of Amazon, or if you're trying to do higher ticket things. Like a lot of my clients that we work with are consultants or speakers or major CEOs and various things like this. And if you're trying to pay someone to go and speak, tens of thousands of dollars or whatever it may go and be, then that is what we need to do, is we need to make sure that you are looking good online. Because if you don't look as good as a competitor and all else is equal, they're going to choose them. And Maddie just actually put in the chat a quote that I really encourage everybody to able and write down. And this is a principle in the world of digital PR. And it says, digital perception influences physical reality. And what that means is how you perceive things to be online determines what you do about them offline. And so if you have a traditional business and if people perceive it to be good, if it's a great product or a great service, whatever it is, and that's what the online reputation says, then people are going to be more likely to actually spend real money with it offline. And that's the principle that we need to go and establish. And so once we understand this principle, and once we are there, the next question then becomes, well, how do I build this reputation? How do I build this brand? How do I go out there and do that? And that's really what we want to spend the most of our time on today's call talking about, is how do we actually go and do that? And so we're going to transition now into what we call the 3 C's, okay? And if you guys are taking notes, this is the time that you're going to want to actually take out the notebook and write some of this stuff down, because these are the principles, okay, that are really going to be able to go out there and help you find massive success in this. So the first C that we're going to be talking about is clarity. The second C that we're going to be talking about is credibility. And the third C that we're going to be talking about is conversion. And so the idea here is that we first need to find clarity on our brand, clarity on our messaging. Once we have clarity on our messaging, then we need to build up our credibility around that message. And then we need to leverage that to actually get real results. And so this is going to be what we call the 3 C's of how to attract media attention and actually go out there and drive revenue into your business. And so the first C, as I already mentioned, is called clarity. And I talked about this a little earlier, but Maddie truly is the queen of the brand identity. And when it comes to the clarity side of things, especially with women, she actually, outside of our agency, she does take on, a few clients per month. That's her personal thing, but it's only women. And so when Linda reached out and said, hey, I have this women community, then they are go-getters, they're dreamers, they're entrepreneurs, they've got it. I'm like, Maddie is going to be the perfect person for them to go out there and talk to. And so, Maddie, if you could dive into a little bit of what that first C looks like from the clarity side of things, and how everyone here can actually gain clarity on their brand and begin starting to build this online reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I just want to say that I wasn't necessarily taught these things. It was through many years of trial and error. I remember when I first started building my brand, there were, the basics that I knew, and that I had also things that I had learned from Luke, but then it went beyond that. And it was like I was reaching out to people who had way bigger brands than me, specifically women. And I was like, hey, help me. Like, what do I do? Asking them specific questions. They did not want to give me their secrets. And in my opinion, there's enough people out there and enough products out there that it's okay. It's healthy to have a little bit of competition, right? And so I am an open book when it comes to everything that I have learned and also taught myself. And so I'm just like so honored and privileged that I get to share with these tips and tricks with you guys. So like Luke said, we're going to go over clarity. So that really, what I like to call it, is setting the intention. So I always love to use the analogy of building a house, right? When you're getting ready to build a house, you wouldn't just start banging nails and wood together. That would not be effective whatsoever. You need a blueprint, and only when you have created a blueprint can you then build a house. And so that's the same thing with your brand. Before we improve your online reputation, we have to first gain that clarity on who are you marketing to? What is your messaging, and where is your target market congregating online? Because that could be so many places. And so once we know those things and have created a crystal clear intention for your brand, then we can focus on attracting the correct media attention with the goal of driving revenue. And so first and foremost, we're going to go over who. Okay, like who are you trying to market to? When it comes to identifying your customer avatar, you want to keep the following things in mind: gender, age, socioeconomic class, etc. I would say the more specific you can get, the better. And that obviously depends on your industry and on your niche. A great example that I'll use is, imagine your product is an anti-aging cream, right? So your customer avatar is probably going to be a woman between the ages of, let's say, 40 to 55, and let's just say middle class, right? Because it's around middle class pricing. Then you're going to move on to what? Okay, what do you need to say to those women to get them interested in your product, in your service, or in your opportunity? And that's where the messaging comes into play, right? So what can help you get clear on your messaging is figuring out what problem you are solving for these women. In this example, people are motivated by two things, and that is the avoidance of pain and or the desire for pleasure. And so I want you to ask yourself, what is motivating your prospects? What are the core pains they are trying to move away from? Write down as many as you can possibly think of. For this specific example, let's just say it's that the woman doesn't like wrinkles on her face and she doesn't necessarily want to go the Botox route, right? And then what are the core desires and passions that they are trying to move toward? So, what are the core pains they're trying to move away from? And what are the core desires and or passions that they are trying to move toward? And in this specific example, let's just say it's aging gracefully while still avoiding Botox. So, great exercise that I would love for you guys to do maybe this evening or this week is write down at least a dozen phrases that people in your market are doing to move toward pleasure and away from pain that might be going on in their head. Because every day in every situation and scenario, we are telling ourselves things. We have stories going on in our head, right? And so it's so important that we put ourselves into their shoes and know exactly what they're telling themselves, know exactly what problems are going on in their head, so that we can come up with those solutions, not just with our product, but with the messaging for our product. Because there are incredible products out there that just don't have their messaging right, and therefore they're not attracting the right people, and then they're not driving revenue, right? Um, Moving forward, we're going to go into the where. Where are they congregating online? Like I said, that could be so many places, but typically, with this example, that would be things like articles. So you may do a simple Google search of holistic anti-aging remedies, that could be a blog that pops up that usually has a linked article. Instagram accounts, right? Also podcasts. I love getting some anti-aging tips from podcasts, and in specific for myself, holistic podcasts. So once you know who you are marketing to, what your messaging is, and where they are congregating online in specific, you have then gained clarity on your brand and can move into credibility. And before we do that, Luke, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, just a couple little tips on this. So like a way that I like to like an analogy that I like, I don't know if the fishing analogy is going to make a lot of sense here with this audience, but I'm gonna say it anyways, okay? Is that it's I like to think of it like fishing when it comes to your brand, right? It's like depending if I'm going fishing, I gotta first number one know who I'm fishing for. So what kind of fish, right? Because if I'm fishing for a salmon, I'm gonna use different bait than if I'm fishing for hammerhead sharks off the coast of Florida. And so the first thing you got to figure out is the who so that you know then the what. Based on the who, then you figure out what. What is the messaging? What is the bait that I'm going to be using to attract these people? And Maddie talked about those key drivers from a psychology perspective, which is very, very key. And then the last idea is just going to be the where. So now I know like who I'm trying to go for, the fish I'm looking for. I know the bait that's going to be there. Now, what waters are they swimming in? Because all fish are in different types of waters. And it's the exact same analogy when it comes to your guys' customers that you're looking for. You got to know who is it that you're trying to attract? What is the messaging that's going to attract those individuals? And where is their attention online? Because it already is somewhere. And so once you know these things, you can start to move to the next step. But let me give you guys a little tip here on how you can actually start to build this brand brief out in a really fast way. And so this is something that we've been playing around with recently, and it's actually amazing how well this is growing. So ChatGPT, some of you guys may have heard of this before, but it's a free site online. It's an AI tool that you can go out there and use, and it's a phenomenal tool. And so let's say you want to go out there and figure out like your brand brief. You want to go and gain clarity on these things. One of the things that you can do is, so again, I'm just going to do this as myself because I don't know what everybody's industries are here, but do it this way. Say acting as the CEO of a digital PR firm looking to gain clarity on their target market, create a brand brief. Enter. And when you do that, this AI will go pretty crazy and create for you a brand brief based off of what you're doing. Everything from taglines, mission statement, vision statements, primary markets, secondary targets, market insights, brand positioning, your unique selling proposition, brand personality, brand values, messaging, communication channels, brand touch points that you can go and use, goals, short term, long term, conclusion. And that was literally from this prompt, okay? And it whipped out all of that in a matter of seconds. And so this is something that all of you guys can do tonight after this call. You can do it right now, and you could do this for your brand and start to play around with it. And here's the thing though, is that this is where kind of like the personalized side of it comes from, is where now you want to take this information and some of it may be a little bit, off on this stuff, right? So, this says primary is keynote speakers. Wow, this is actually really impressive how well it did. That's actually like ideal, right on for us. But let's say it's not, okay? Let's say it's saying it's like make the primary the primary market I don't know. Let's say politicians. Politicians. And that's what we're going to go and do. Then what it's going to go and do is it's going to then go out there and update all of this stuff, and it's going to then break it down based off of that. It will adjust everything based off of this. And you can basically have a conversation with this AI to be able to create your perfect brand brief so that you can have exact clarity on all of these things that Maddie's going out there and doing. And so again, everyone can do this. This is absolutely free, and it is an incredible, incredible, incredible thing for you to do. And I recommend everybody take time to go and do this. Okay, it's going to be huge. Here's the other thing too, is that if in the future, like you grow your team, right? Like you bringing on new people onto your team, and they're trying to get the ethos of your company and your culture. You can print out these brand briefs, hand it straight to the person, and be like, hey, this is who we are. This is the essence of us, the core values, mission statements, everything that we're trying to do. And you can help people familiarize themselves with you. I'm telling you, if you hire a director of marketing and you hand them this right when they get there, it makes their job 1,000 times easier. Okay. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend everybody go out there and do that.
And Luke,
And so,
really quick,
yeah.
and the website for a desktop is free, but the app on your phone you have to pay for, right?
Well, it depends. You can get various
Okay.
apps that basically use ChatGPT as like a
Okay.
plugin. But if you just use the Safari on your phone, you can literally just go to chatgpt.com. You make an account, you use your Gmail, and now you have access to this as much
Okay.
as you want. Okay, so it's really, really, really powerful. So great tool for everybody to be able to go out there and use here. So that's on that one. So now. Everybody have that? I guess we can open up for any questions on any
I
of this
feel,
stuff here.
sorry, one last thing, going back to what I was saying, like those statements, like the core pains are moving away from you. If you're kind of feeling a little stumped on those, give it a prompt, acting as a consumer for an anti-aging cream. And then you give it that prompt and then you ask the question, what core pains am I trying to move away from? Right. You can give it those prompts and then go through those. And then, I mean, maybe not all of them resonate, but it may help you move forward with writing down those statements. Just wanted to add that.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that like you can ask because it's so fast. Like it is insane how fast technology is. So like Maddie just went out there and said that, right? And I just went out there and just, hey, what core pains are my primary target, or it should be is my primary target running away from? And here it is. It's like public perception, effective communication, difficulty in conveying clear and consistent messages, but fear in public speaking, right? And so it's like it just whips out all this stuff for you. And so it's like this is an incredible, incredible tool. It's absolutely amazing, and you can see how it's like this is like where I tell people in this digital age, it's like it's AI is not good or bad, okay? It is just a tool. It is about how we use it. And so if you guys can use it in this way, it will drastically help you guys and really give you a competitive advantage. So that is on that one. That's a great point, Maddie. Thanks for adding that. Okay, cool. Now let's move on to credibility. Okay, so now we have this brand brief. We know kind of like who our target market is. We know what is the messaging that's going to attract them. We know where they're congregating online. And now to identify the where, the question is like, okay, how can we now kind of like build up some credibility around them? Because here's the thing, is that if you get in front of your target market without the credibility, they're going to ignore you. and it's not going to be helpful. And so the concept here is pretty simple, is that we need to make it so that when you get in front of those people, they perceive you as the person who can help them solve their issue. I'll give you an example of this, right? So if you are sick, okay, let's just say you have, I don't know, just say you have a really bad cold, or you have the flu or something along these lines, or maybe you don't even know what it is, right? You're just feeling down and in the dumps and things like this, right? You run into someone and you figure out that they are a doctor. What are you going to do? You're going to be inclined to be like, hey, here's what's going on with me. Any advice that you can go and give me on this stuff? Why? Because the fact that they are a doctor makes you perceive them as credible and perceive them as somebody who you believe could help you solve your problem because they are a doctor. If you just run into some other random Joe Schmo on the street and they're not a doctor, you're probably not going to be asking them medical advice. Why? Because you don't perceive them to be, the person that can go out there and help you with these things. And so the concept I'm trying to explain to you guys here is that even if you have complete clarity of who your target market is, what they want, and where they are, if that group does not perceive you as credible, perceive you as the people who can help them solve their problem, they will ignore you and move on to somebody else. And that's why it is so important for us to go and build this credibility. And again, one way to build this credibility is just have a massive track record of success. Like if you've helped a ridiculous amount of people, that's one thing that you can go and lean on. But most of us, especially when you first start out, you don't have that. We've got to go out there and find other ways to get it. And so this is one of my favorite ways, is getting into the media. And I want to share with you guys how you can get into the media and what that process looks like. But before I do that, I want to share with you guys the principle that has been extremely helpful. We teach this to all of our clients, and it's something that will really help you guys understand why this is so important, okay? So what we call this is the trust triangle. And so with this trust triangle, I want you guys to think of like the 3 different points, okay? So you have on the bottom right, we have the customer. So the potential customer for your business. Down at the bottom left, we have your company, or, maybe if you're a personal brand, this is, you or your personal brand or whatever it may go and be. Then at the top, we have major media. And so major media is different for every industry, right? Like if you are a consultant for Fortune 500 CEOs, maybe major media for you is Forbes, right? If you are someone into, health and fitness, right? Maybe major media for you is getting into, a high level health and fitness publication or something along these lines, right? But the concept here is that we have these 3 different angles. And between your customer and major media, there is a level of respect. So I'll give you an example. I'm just going to use the consultant example. Just gets an easy one for me to go out there and use. So let's say you are a consultant. That's your company. And let's say your customer is a potential, Fortune 500. And so they then don't know who you are yet. They don't know who you are. But you are in Forbes. And the Forbes is the major media that's up here. So what's happening is that your company is associating with Forbes. The customer doesn't know who you are yet, but they know who Forbes is. And so therefore, because they respect Forbes and you are associated with Forbes, what that does is it builds credibility and trust between you and your customer. And so it's credibility and trust through association. Another way to go and do this, imagine, some of you guys may listen to podcasts here, right? There's probably people that on a podcast that you listen to, I don't know, this is the biggest one in the world, the Joe Rogan podcast, right? So this guy comes on the Joe Rogan podcast, you have no idea who this person is. And then Joe Rogan edifies them and they get to express, like who he is, what he does, all these things. Let's say Joe Rogan's the major media, the person is the guest that's here, and then this is you. What happens is you didn't know who the person was, but he was on one of the biggest podcasts that you respect, and the host of that edified that person as an expert. And so what happens is because that person associated themselves on that major podcast and you respect the host of that podcast, now you trust the person that was on the show. Does that make sense? And so through this association, you can start to gain trust and credibility in the eyes of your target market. And this is kind of the principle that aligns. So that's the principle. But now let's talk about the how, right? Because that's what everyone's get to. It's like, okay, now how do I actually go out there and do this? The answer to this is unique. So the first thing we have to remember when it comes to the how is that you are looking for the media outlets that are looking for you. Okay, I'll say this again. You're looking for the outlets that are looking for you. And what does that mean? What that means is that if you are a journalist, okay, if you work for, Forbes, USA Today, NASDAQ, Men's Journal, whatever the publications are, okay, you have a quota for a certain number of stories that you have to write every single month. And you have a column, right? And it has a certain, like, a certain niche to that column, right? So people write in the business column or the finance column or the health column or the wellness column or the lifestyle column or whatever that may go out there and be, right? And if I'm a writer and I write for the business column at Forbes or USA Today or NASDAQ or whatever, my job is to find a certain number of stories every single month and publish those. And so my job then is I got to find the story, I got to then write the story, and then I got to publish the story. And so if you are somebody who, and remember our brand clarity side of things, right? Like, who are you trying to attract? Let's say, again, I'm going to use the same analogy that Maddie used there. Let's just say it's a natural skincare, kind of anti-aging thing, right? That's what I'm trying to go and do. It's like, okay, where are my people hanging out? They're reading publications that have to do with health and wellness. So then you find a large health and wellness publication. And what happens is you go find the person that's in that publication who's writing about topics that you're interested in, like holistic healing or something along those lines. And that's what your product does. And so again, when I say you're looking for the people who are looking for you, is what I'm talking about is that every single publication has writers who are looking for stories that are going to resonate with what your messaging and what your story is. So I'll take another step back and I'll give you guys an example. So for us at our firm, all we do is we work for thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and businesses. That's what we do. And so we go to other publications and contributors and writers at those publications who are looking for stories on thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and businesses. And basically what we do is we act as a bridge between the two people. We take the story and we get them there, and it's just we make the connection. But you can do this on your own, right? Like, if you have an interesting story in the world of health and wellness, or in the world of finance, or in the world of you're a small business that's a startup and it's a new restaurant that you're going out there and doing, or whatever it may go out there and be, there is somebody out there at some publication that writes about that very thing. If it's a small business, there are a million contributors out there that write all about small businesses. And so the concept, again, is you're looking for those who are looking for you. And so I'm going to go back and I'll show you what we would do for someone like, let's say, if you want to get into a USA Today. And this is, literally how we made our relationship at USA Today. So we work with, like I said, a bunch of entrepreneurs. So USA Today business. Google, enter. Here comes a bunch of stuff from it. And so here's the business section of it. So I click on that. And now what's going to pop up here is going to be a list of the top stories in the business section of USA Today. And notice how all these stories have a name: Alan, Taylor, Jessica, Alan, Mehdi, Taylor, Allison, etc. These are the people who wrote these stories. And so if I have a PR, HR company, a website company, a host, whatever it is, right? Like, I'm going to click on, let's say business formation. That's what I'm in. I click on this. And I go to the guy who wrote it, Alan Bradley, and you can take this name, and you can go to LinkedIn, and I can take this name, I can Google it, I can copy, paste, go to LinkedIn, and I can reach out to Alan Bradley and say, hey, Alan, I noticed that you are a contributor for USA Today in the business section, or something along those lines. Would love to connect about, my story and how we could work together, something like that. And here's a way to figure out what to say to the person, right? Go to ChatGPT. This is like a cheat code for everything in life, okay? Seriously, it is absolutely insane, right? Like this: write me a LinkedIn message to pitch a USA Today contributor on a story about my small business. Enter. And what will happen is this thing will start to write this thing up, okay? And then you start to work with this and you start to make it, condense it, right? If this is a little bit too long, I want to say make it more condensed. And then what's going to happen is they're going to make it a little bit more condensed within this area. And so you can work with this to be able to actually figure out what you're going to say to the person. But the way you find that person is you figure out, again, you're looking for the people that are looking for you. So in that first clarity section, we're figuring out what is our messaging? What's the story? And then we think about who are the contributors that are writing about these stories. And then you reach out to them and you just give them the story that they're working for. And remember, how did their job is finding these stories. And so it's a great way for you to do this. And it's a law of averages, of course. Not everyone's going to go out there and accept it, but this is the process of how it goes out there and works. And so this is what you do for publications to be able to go and get on this. Another great way to go and do this is you can do this for podcasts, right? So now I go on to podcasts. This is a great website. It's called Rephonic, okay? REPHONIC.com, Rephonic. And this is just a giant podcast database. So let's say I want to get onto business podcasts. I can just go in and type in business, and what it's going to do is give me a huge list of 200 pages of business podcasts. But I can now, remember, I mean, like 500,000 listeners, it's going to be tough to get on those because everyone's trying to get on them. So a little hack that you can go and do is you just go to the listeners, bring them down to like 5,000, maybe even go lower if you want. So 5,000. Now, here are all of these podcasts that are specifically on business with less than 5,000 listeners. And so what that means is you're going to have a much higher likelihood of being able to get onto the show because there's less people fighting for it. And people are like, oh, well, I'm not going to get on a podcast unless there's, 100,000 people listening to it. I mean, just think about this, right? Imagine you do a keynote speech in front of 3,500 people. Like, imagine you're in an auditorium and there's 3,500 people that are listening to you talk. It's a lot of people is what I'm trying to say. And if you want to get super niche on this, like look at like what Maddie said, the example, let's say you're in the skincare space, right? Type in skincare. Guys, look at all of these that are all about, I mean, literally, Biohacking Beauty, the anti-aging skincare podcast. I didn't even do this before this. It is the perfect niche. So now here's 1,400 people that listen to this podcast every episode, and all they're looking for is anti-aging skincare stuff. And so imagine you getting on there, telling your story, talking about what you're doing. Now you're in front of 1,400 interested people. You build a relationship with the host. And guess what happens is the host, when you get on the podcast, edifies you, right? And then you get to borrow that host's credibility because all of these listeners, of course, trust the host or else they wouldn't be listening to their podcast. But then when that host edifies you, it goes back to that trust triangle thing I was telling you about. Now, all of these people immediately see you as the expert. Okay. And now they're listening to what you're going to say. And you get on a podcast, I mean, I think it's an hour or so. Then what you can do is you can literally take this hour-long podcast and you can chop it up into, maybe 10 or 15, 30 to 60-second little clips. And you can then re-put those on social media and repurpose these things, right? And so from this one piece of content, you get all of that. So this is what's so cool about Rephonic is that if you go on this and you click on this, you can actually go and you can add them to a list. So you can build a list of the targeted ones you have. Or the really cool thing is you can click contacts right here. And then they're going to have stuff. And you can literally, here's their LinkedIn, you can literally, or their Instagram, you can literally click send a pitch and you can start to, do this. Okay. And you can actually start to reach out to these people, which is really, really powerful. And so this is a great way to organize it. It gives you all the stats of everything that you need to go out there and do. And again, like these people, you're looking for the people that are looking for you. People that have skincare podcasts are looking for interesting people that can talk about skincare. So whatever niche that you're in, you can apply this same thing to it. And again, you can start to build your credibility by being a featured guest on podcasts, on publications. You can get published. And then, in TV, it works the same thing. Just find the TV producers, okay, around the show. And it's the exact same process. And so this is the way that you can start to get on these media outlets. And you can really start to build that credibility by using that trust triangle. And so that's the concept, around this and around credibility. And the last C that we're going to be focusing on here is going to be the conversion side of things. And so with this one, what I'm going to assume now is that we have clarity of the brand, right? We've built some credibility around it. We've got third-party validation. It's not just us saying how great we are, but we have, maybe some particles, maybe some podcasts you've been on, right? Some third-party validation to build up that credibility around you. And now the question is, how do I turn that into actual revenue? How do I turn that into actual sales? And the answer to that is that it's going to be different depending on your current marketing efforts right now for every person, right? Is it possible that you get on the podcast, you tell that story, and you just get a bunch of people that go to your website and buy your stuff? Absolutely. I've seen that happen multiple times. But it's also possible that that doesn't happen, and you want to still be able to repurpose that content. And so one of the best ways that I found to be able to go and repurpose this and create conversions is two sides of the coin. Number one is integrating it into your current marketing efforts. And so, for example, for us, the way that we do all of our lead gen right now is through cold outbound on LinkedIn. So we connect with people on LinkedIn who don't know us. And what we do is we send them articles on us saying, hey, I know you don't know us very well. Here's here's an article that was recently published in Forbes on us, or whatever the heck we want to go out there and say, depending on the, whatever the article is, depending on the person. And so it's a way to build that trust with that cold, prospect, and get them to trust us more so that we can get on a phone call, get to know them, and see if there's an opportunity for us to be able to go out there and serve them. If you run ads, right? We have a lot of clients that run ads. What they will do is they will really run ads to these articles, that they've been featured in, and they will use that as the front end of their campaigns, and the conversion rates on them are absolutely phenomenal. Another thing that you can go out there and do is you can repurpose it onto your website. And so many people have probably heard of, Tony Robbins, right? And it's like Tony Robbins doesn't need any more credibility. He's Tony freaking Robbins, right? But you go to his website, what is the first thing that he has on all of his stuff is, oh, he just took it down. Wow, he just updated his website. Oh, here it is. There it is. Okay, he did update it. This used to be at the very top of everything he did. Now it's a little bit down, but still he has featured in Forbes, Fortune, Inc., Success. Why? Because of that trust triangle that I was telling you about. Even someone as credible as Tony Robbins has it. And then he has all the videos of him speaking, third-party credibility from people, different things like this. So putting it on your website, a really simple way to go and do it. And then another way that I love to go and do it as well is repurposing these things and putting them on LinkedIn. And so if you go onto your profile and you just click on it, there's a cool section on it. And that section is right here underneath featured. And on the featured, you can put all the publications that you've been featured in, and it helps you just build up that credibility. And so again, for me, we're constantly doing these outbound messages on LinkedIn. People get a message from me and they're like, who's this person? They click on my profile, they're going to check me out, and in a matter of seconds, they're going to judge me, which is why I put the third-party credibility up here at the front of it. And so the concept behind this is that the way that you turn this into revenue is you leverage these assets. And what the coolest part is about it is that these are evergreen assets, right? Once you get into Forbes one time, or you get into whatever public, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying Forbes because everyone knows what it is, right? It's whatever the publication is. You get into that thing one time, for the rest of time, you can now say, as seen in this publication, forever. You can, that link to that article will never go away. It's an evergreen asset. And so you can go ahead and leverage that in any way that you want to go and do it. And so people will ask me, well, what's the ROI on building your brand, getting in the media, building up this reputation? And the answer is that it depends on the person. I will tell you that my ROI on my brand has been bigger than anything I've done ever, but it took time, right? Again, it's an asset. It's like building, it's like investing in that house. As I mentioned, you can't buy the house today and sell it tomorrow and make a huge profit. It takes time for it to grow. And if you can build this asset around your brand, you can stack up articles that you're in. You can stack up podcast features that you get on. You can stack up TV appearances that you do. It just sets you apart from the competition, and it gives you a massive advantage, and anyone can do it. And at the end of the day, there's two ways that you can do this, right? Number one is like the do-it-yourself model, which is what I just shared with you. If you are going and doing it that way, the big thing that I'll just tell you is just prepare to play the numbers game, because that's really what this is. It is a numbers game. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. And you just continue to play the numbers game, and then eventually you find the person that's looking for you. Remember, we're looking for those who are looking for us. That's the philosophy around this. That is one way to go out there and do it. The other way to go and do it is you just find somebody who has established connections, and you do it that way, right? You pay them and they get you in it from that perspective. And that's the other option. And so there isn't any right or wrong way to go and do it. It just depends on your unique situation. If you have more time than money, then you're definitely going to want to go out there and do it on your own and go and reach out and go make it happen. If you've got more money than time, then you're probably going to want to pay someone else to go do that work for you, and so that you can just go out there and do that. And so again, there's no right or wrong. It's all about just kind of evaluating your situation. And so in kind of closing behind this, I want to just wrap this up again, because I know we're getting to the end of this, is the 3 C's that we talked about, right? Clarity, credibility, conversion. We got to get clarity on who we're marketing to. We got to get clarity on what we're going to be telling them, what's our messaging, and where are they going to be at. The great tool to use that, remember, is ChatGPT. Very simple prompt. You can go and build that out. It works very well. Second, credibility. Remember that trust triangle that I was talking about. That's what we're trying to go out there and establish and do. The way we do that is we get featured in major media that our audience that we identified in the clarity phase perceive as credible. And so how we get with them, again, I kind of shared with you Raphonic, great way to do it for podcasts. When it comes to press and publications, pick the publication you want to go and get in, look for the column that your story would resonate with, and look for the contributors in that column, and you can reach out to those people, and that's how you're going to go and get it. Then the conversion. Now you're actually published in the article. You're actually on the podcast. How can we then repurpose those assets to be able to lead to a higher conversion rate? So think of what your current marketing campaign is and figure out where's the best way to put it in. Is it best in the front, so you're running an ad to the actual article itself? Is it best as a lead nurture system? So it's like after you get someone into your ecosystem, you say, hey, I know you don't know me that well. Here's a podcast I was just on to go and check it out. And it's a way to kind of convert the leads there. Or is it a follow-up tool? You have someone that you talked to once, they didn't answer. Now you use this as a credibility piece for a follow-up. Or do you do all of it, right? Repurpose it for your website, put it on social media, various things like this. That is how we're going to focus on the conversion side of things to actually go out there and create sales. And then the final thing is, again, just deciding is it DIY or done for you. So those are the things. And so the action steps that I would really recommend everybody here to take is number one is just like commit to actually building your brand. I can't stress this enough, but this is the thing to do. Attention is the currency of marketing. All attention is shifting online, and those who have a strong brand online are going to have a massive competitive advantages to those who don't. So I urge you to commit to go out there and do that. Second thing I really encourage you guys to do is just decide how you want to go and do it. Is it DIY, do whatever, done for you, do it yourself. It doesn't matter. It's up to you of how you want to go and do it, but just decide on your approach. So you make your decision, and then number one, that I'm doing it. And then number two, you just decide how you're going to go out there and do it. And then number three is just do it until, okay? It's like getting in shape. It doesn't happen overnight, right? You go to the gym one time and, you get home the next day and you get back on the scale. You're the same weight. You're sore. You're tired. You're just like, oh, I don't even want to do this anymore. And then most people quit. Okay. And that's why they don't actually get in shape. It's the same thing with building your brand. You make the list of all the podcasts you're going to reach out to, the publishers you're going to do it, and you take a day and you do it, and then no one responds to you, and then it doesn't happen. And you're like, oh, it's not going to work. And it's just not the truth. You just have to play the numbers game. And again, you're looking for the people that are looking for you. And so if you just commit to doing it until, when I say until, I mean until you have the brand, that's what's really going to give you guys that edge and let you get to that next level.